economically, the most important move, in my view, in the Arab world is to do away with the rentier system that has governed, a rentier economy that has governed most of the Arab world. In oil-producing countries, a rentier system has meant that, with money literally growing on the ground, productivity was killed. People do not have to work for their style of life, and has meant a no taxation, no representation attitude. If we're not taxing you, don't hold us accountable. And in countries that are not oil producing but are receiving benefits from oil producing countries like my own, a semi-rentier system, it has also meant the development of rentier layers around the regime that have benefited from this system. And instead of relying on a merit-based system, people, particularly the governing elite, have relied on these rentiers, on these rents coming from the outside. If the Arab world is to deal with its huge unemployment problem, with its huge youth bulge challenge, 70% of the Arab world, 70% are under 30 years of age. It has to find a new way, a merit-based system to create jobs for these people, because productivity can never be increased unless you encourage creativity, innovation, unless you provide people with the skills necessary to compete in today's marketplace. And from a society point of view, inclusion. Inclusion, diversity has always meant or been a bad word in Arab culture. The Arab world is diverse. It's extremely diverse. It is ethnically diverse. It is religiously diverse. And yet no one really celebrates this diversity. So diversity has been suppressed in the Arab world, whether it was political, cultural, or religious, in place of the common good. And what it has meant is that people in Syria today think of themselves as Christians or Kurds or Alawites before they think of themselves as Syrian. And it has meant that people in Bahrain also are engaged in sectarian fights, etc. And unless we adopt a system where diversity is truly, truly celebrated as a strength rather than a weakness, the Arab world is not going to face some good times. And that brings me to my fourth point, and I devote a whole chapter in the book about it: education. The Arab world, if the Arab awakenings are to really mean stable societies, education and educational policies must be revisited in the Arab world. Not in terms of building more schools or in terms of even putting computers in them, but in terms of the values that are taught to the young generation. If a pluralistic culture is to emerge, it has to have a foundation that can only come through education, where people learn about tolerance, learn about accepting other points of view, learn about truths being relative and not absolute, learn about critical thinking, are taught how to question, how to research, how to communicate. None of these, I maintain, none of these are issues that are seriously addressed in the Arab world. And today, when people in the Arab world talk about education reform, most of that reform goes to building schools or to the quantity of education, and very seldomly do anything about the quality of it.